Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I'm your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 128, recording on Friday, November 14th. The guest is Kevin Fishbain. He's been on here before. He covers the Chicago Bears for The Athletic, a colleague of mine who's covered this team for a long time. And we talked about Caleb Williams. We previewed this matchup. We got into observing quarterback development, a lot of different angles, avenues, detours throughout this podcast, but always fun to chop it up with Kevin before these games. As always, if you're new here and watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button below. There's a little red thing in the corner too, where you can just hover over that. Takes 2 seconds, but helps us out. And then if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart, we really, really appreciate that. The show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank. In the Minneapolis area, it's run by Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, some great dudes, some Vikings fans. They care about the team and the community. And their banking platform is really, really good. It's been necessary for me since I arrived here in the Twin Cities a bunch of years ago. The show is also sponsored by Unreal, the locally based clothing brand that does it at a level that nobody else is doing it right now. And they've got an NFL collection with premium Vikings drops on a week-to-week basis. This is just one of their regular hoodies that I'm wearing a lot right now, but really good apparel based here, easy to support. So please go check out Unreal in the description. Stories galore at The Athletic, where I do my day job covering this team. Wrote about Andrew Van Ginkel, loaded preview with John Krasinski. Some J.J. analysis earlier this week, so a bunch of stuff over there. Let's not waste any time, though. Here's the Vikings-Bears preview, talking Caleb, talking quarterbacks, talking Bears defense, with Kevin Fishbain, my colleague at The Athletic. All right, Kevin, welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show, third-time guest. Just how does it feel? Welcome back. How are you 9 games into this season?
Good. I'm kind of like I'm like moving up from like the SNL, how like they have the ones who are kind of like not officially the cast members.
Sure.
I'm like one of those guys on the Alec Lewis Show.
An extra.
You're probably too young. You're too young for Friends, but it was this TV show on NBC. It was a sitcom. Like I'm like Gunther. Like I'm like in the most episodes without actually being one of the main castmates.
I thought you were going to say I was too old for SNL, but you really you could have just done that for both. So, but I appreciate you providing that. I was just watching Drake May, and so I'm a little rattled here as I'm sitting down to record this podcast. You might have heard that the quarterback of your team and the quarterback of this team, I say your team, you don't own it, the team you cover, they were both drafted in the same draft in 2024, and so was Drake May. Part of me wants to know what you've thought of the quarterback from that draft that you cover in his second season in the NFL. His name's Caleb Williams.
Thank you. Good question. I think Caleb's had some nice moments this year. He's shown his poise late in games. Look, the guy's got a clutch gene. And I think that's okay to kind of acknowledge that. Now, I'm sure the Bears would prefer that he doesn't have to do superhero stuff to beat the 2-7 Giants or to have to rally back to beat, the 3-win Bengals. But he already has more game-winning drives this year than anybody in Bears history. And like if he was doing what Drake May's doing, throwing the football especially, we'd be talking about an MVP candidate, obviously, because Drake May's being talked about as an MVP candidate, and Caleb's not there yet. His accuracy is not where it needs to be. I need to note this so I don't get yelled at by Bears fans. Yes, players dropped passes last week. That impacted last week's completion percentage. He did not get a lot of help. With that said, he's still overall this season completion percentage is better. Just still like there's still some times that you see this with the quarterback you cover We see it with young quarterbacks all the time. You're in the press box and you kind of see somebody open and you see kind of that hitch and then you kind of see the happy feet and they escape. Now at Caleb, when he escapes, sometimes really good things happen. Sometimes, like Cincinnati, there were a lot of times he escaped and had to throw it away. So overall, though, I think it's been, especially over the last month, it's been good, been really good. And I just think if you're a Bears fan on the optimistic side, I think there's a lot of really good things to come. If you want to be a pessimist, you can wonder, like, how much better is he going to get? Or is like he always going to be just a little, for lack of a better comparison, Jay Cutlery?
You're the perfect person to talk through it. And I was just, as you were
Thank you. I am
there,
the perfect person. You can just stop right there. I appreciate it.
No, because there has been a lot of conversation here locally about the highs and lows of watching a young quarterback who was drafted in the first round through 4 games. You've seen and lived and covered quarterbacks in their first foray so many times. And so I guess the question that I want to pose to you is, like, can you describe your journey or what you feel like it's been over the years of watching guys as they are getting their feet wet in the NFL at this position and maybe the difficulty in trying to evaluate it early on?
It's really tough. From a professional standpoint, I've always believed it's important to go game by game and essentially ride the roller coaster with them. And I think, like, to use JJ as an example, like, what he did in the fourth quarter in Chicago was incredibly memorable. What he, showed last week against Baltimore showed some struggles. And that's the same quarterback. And it's okay for both those things to live in the same atmosphere. And then you just kind of keep building up to try to see who this guy is going to be. The challenge that we all have is that Jaden Daniels did what Jaden did last year. Drake May is doing what Drake May is doing right now with a new head coach. What C.J. Stroud did a couple years ago. And the other challenge is, like, every quarterback who doesn't get off to a great start, then you have people like, well, he'll be Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a unicorn. Like,
exactly right.
But, like, you have to acknowledge that Josh Allen did happen. And now you even can add Baker and Geno and Darnold to the list. So you kind of, like, have all these different. So my whole thing is, like, and I'm going to sound like a GM here, these guys all have different trajectories. They all have different paths. And, like, I just always try in my position to, like, just watch the development, see what you can see. And, like, I don't know, sometimes these guys, when they're in tough spots, like, they just get rattled. And I think, like, you see them not trusting their offensive line or not trusting the play call or not trusting the receiver to get open. And it was a lot easier in college. And suddenly that's when the mechanics fall apart. Mm-hmm. And the thing that we all have to figure out, and more importantly, the guys getting paid millions of dollars have to figure out, is what's coachable and what is going to linger.
Bingo.
This is my 3rd first-round pick quarterback I've covered. And
that's why you're the perfect
Mr. Trubisky,
person.
Period. With Trubisky, like, you just kind of reached a point in year 3 where you're like, okay, this guy can do a lot of nice things for you if A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K are all happening. And then you've seen the way his career has panned out, and great guy, great leader. If you need him in a pinch, you can step in, but, like, he's a backup. Justin Fields, we all saw what he was capable of as a runner for sure. And you see some of the throwing talent, but, like, you saw the accuracy issues, you saw the late game issues, you saw the turnover issues. It's like, and then you get enough of a sample size, and it's like, all right, it's just not working. So the question is, when do you get to that point? Because, again, you have that Josh Allen's, you Darnold's, like, it's hard. It's really hard. And I think these other quarterbacks that figure out quickly make it really a lot harder on us to, like, try to tell the fans, like, wait, like, just let this thing roll. And I'm sure you're dealing with that right now in Minnesota. And, like, with Caleb, even this year, there's been rough games where you have to, like, sort through, okay, this was a bad game, but. And then the flip side is you have to look at a good game and be like, yeah, this was a good game, but it could have been better, or is this really who he is? You know, like, I remember there was a time, I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but that's what podcasts are built for. There was, like, with Jay Cutler, like, I started covering him, 9, 10, 11, like, it was his 5th season, right? No. What class was he? Was he 06? Was he the 06 draft class? Yeah, he was the 06 draft class. Traded to the Bears on April 2nd, 2009. And so I got him in, like, his 8th season. And at that point, like, he is who he is.
Yeah.
And Jay, at his best, did some incredible things. And then we all knew what Jay kind of was when things weren't working out. But, like, that was a veteran quarterback where we didn't have to play this game every week. You just kind of knew who he was. And, like, some days he was really good and some days he struggled.
And it is, I mean, you said you ride the roller coaster, but I mean, I would have to imagine in this day and age, with this media climate, you know, with the amount of eyeballs, with social media, like, the roller coaster is supercharged, jacked up, you know, it's even more ratcheted than it probably has been and was. And I mean, it was fascinating listening to you go through that because, to your point, like, you see the CJ Stroud example, the Jaden Daniels example, the Drake May right now example, and you said, you know, like, it is a benchmark for fans to look at. It's a benchmark that media looks at. And it's hard if you're a fan, if someone listens to this podcast as a fan and they see a guy have such success in year one with a worse environment and a worse surroundings, then you're yearning for more. So it's tough. But then, I mean, there are all sorts of examples. Like, you didn't mention Bryce Young. Guy won the Heisman, was unbelievable, controlled the entire Alabama offense, and then he enters the situation that he did in Carolina. And, I mean, it's so hard to really evaluate coaching, organizational structure, you know, size at that point. There's just, the variables are endless, and you're matching it all the time to previous examples in your head, probably, and that's why it's an interesting conversation. I mean, to Caleb, you know, what's fascinating to me is because of the late game highs that you referenced, and they're evident on film, and he'll evade pass rushers in a way that is beyond unique, and scramble for a 30-yard touchdown to win the game. Like, it makes it easier to overlook him missing a read over the middle of the field, which is evident in a lot of these games. So, like, for you, as you watch the season, I imagine in rhythm within the pocket has been something you guys are analyzing day to day. How do you feel like he's developed in that capacity?
You know, it's funny because he wants to be a pocket passer. Like, he said the other day, he goes, I'm a throwing quarterback. I'm not a running quarterback. Like, he's not out here trying to be, you know, a runner. He knows he can. So I think he prefers to just sit in the pocket and go through his reads. I think the flip side of that is he knows that he can escape. He knows he can make throws on the run that few people on this planet can make. And that probably makes it a little, you know, that shot clock in his head is different than other guys. But yeah, we're all watching that because, you know, Jared Goff was a near MVP with Ben Johnson, obviously, because of a lot of what he would do in the pocket. He was not going outside the pocket to do that stuff. So you want to kind of see that materialize, and this offense hums when Caleb's able to, you know, one pat, hit the guy in stride and watch him go. And you definitely see a couple of those every game, and you know, you want to see more. It's funny because the fans get so frustrated, I think, when we talk like this because of what Caleb can do when he extends the play. It's just like, you can't. I just don't think you can live there for like a career. Like that can't be your career. And but I like, you know, like, again, back to my quarterback judging history. Like I've seen like Caleb is better than the two other guys I covered. Like I'm pretty comfortable saying that, and just all of his abilities. And I think those two guys did some nice things and had horrible situations to deal with. Caleb had a pretty bad situation to deal with last year. But yeah, we're all kind of watching that whole idea of getting him getting that rhythm and that timing down to get these guys the ball quicker and in stride and all those things.
It has to be. I mean, you said the shot clock in his head. It has to be difficult because when you can do something like he did against the Giants, rolling to his left late in that game and throwing the ball back across his body to Colston Loveland, the first round pick tight end, like over the middle of the field. That is that ability and the velocity he can put on throws when he is outside the pocket. Like he looks so comfortable mechanically throwing the ball when he's outside of the pocket. So again, it just has to be so interesting and difficult for him to try to discern at what point do I dip out or at what point do I or do I just continue with the original intent and rhythm of the offense that Ben Johnson designs very well.
Yeah, and again, that goes to him knowing, like, oh yeah, here comes Brian Banks, but like Brian Burns, but I'm gonna be able to, duck under him and spin out. Like he just knows he's gonna be able to do that. So, and Ben Johnson talked about it this week that like he'd like to see Caleb. There's probably some moments where he can hang in there for another tick and get that ball out, but if he gets outside and that second play there, the problems they were having earlier in the season were he'd get outside the pocket and he wouldn't. This happened in Baltimore a lot. Like he wouldn't run, or that second play just wasn't there. And you saw that improve against the Giants when they made their comeback. He did take off and run. He made that great play to Loveland. He had a couple plays that were dropped. So I think that's the thing with them is like he needs to be more comfortable taking off when he gets outside. And he also, again, he can stand and stay in there for another second and complete that quote unquote layup.
With the rest of the offense, it was interesting to watch it on film. It feels like Roma Dunze is definitely taking a step. As a Mizzou guy watching Luther Burden, I would be shocked if his snap count is not on an upward trajectory with what he's shown. Zacchaeus, the other receiver, is kind of interesting. DJ Moore's there, and sometimes in the backfield, sometimes he's out wide, and it's interesting to watch him within this scheme. And then the run game, it feels like when DeAndre Swift can get outside the tackles, like he has speed and has juice to move the ball up the field. I just, from an offense-wide, players around Caleb, be it offensive line, be it some of the guys I just mentioned, what is most curious to you as you think about not only Sunday, but the duration of the second half of this season?
Yeah, it's funny the way you describe DJ Moore, because something I've been saying since week 3 is we're going to have a DJ Moore game. Like we're going to have a game where he has 8 catches for 120 yards because he's capable of it. He's had some good games against the Vikings. It just hasn't come yet. Rome's had 2 great games. Loveland had his breakout game. Burden had a big game earlier in the season. I don't think Zacchaeus is kind of ever going to have those kind of gaudy stats. But I mentioned all that to be they're 6-3 and DJ hasn't had a huge game. And Rome had 0 catches when they scored 47 points. And their number 10 pick has had some great moments, but they still haven't really fully unlocked him. They're 6-3, and they had one of the worst run games in the league the first month of the season. They've obviously fixed that. So you could look at that and say, well, something's off here, or you can look at it and say, these guys haven't come close to unlocking their potential. I think it's a little, I don't think it's fully that, but it's somewhere kind of in the middle, like teetering towards, like, they have not played their best game. And like, it's just a pretty good collection of skilled players. Burden is fascinating to me because folks who are listening to this on Friday, you can see like my mailbag, like every week I get questions about Luther Burden, like why isn't he playing more? And that really came to a head this week because he had the big catch late in the game. Zacchaeus had 3 critical drops. And I did check, like their snap count was pretty close. It was 39-33 in favor of Zacchaeus. So you're right. And Ben Johnson essentially admitted, like, they got to give him the ball more. He is electric when he gets the ball in his hands. So yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have, and it's an offense that like wants to like key in on different guys all the time. Like, they just don't want you as a defense to focus in on anybody. So yeah, as I said, it's funny, like I guess the Cincinnati game is now kind of the benchmark for the offense as a whole.
Probably because it's Cincinnati game, like, and the Bengals defense is one of the worst I've ever seen in person.
Well, that's the thing. And their other big game against Dallas, which is also a putrid defense. So, like, you know, these guys, in the Dallas game, they couldn't run the ball, and they stalled in the fourth quarter. In Cincinnati, like, they had a few drives that were just empty drives. So, like, there's still more that this group can figure out as this thing gets going. I mean, look, Ben Johnson keeps saying they're going to be playing their best football in December. So,
yeah, now's their time to present that. It is, I mean, the way you just described it is pretty much how it looks. Like, there are instances where it looks like the rhythmic Ben Johnson offense that Vikings fans listening and watching this podcast would be used to from what they saw in Detroit. And then there are other instances where it just, frankly, it looks kind of like a mess. And it's still a lot of, you know, formationally, to go really in the weeds, it looks fairly similar. They'll use 2 tight ends. They'll have Kmet as a fullback in the backfield. There's a lot of early down play action from under center. They'll use a jumbo offensive lineman. Like, it's, you know, they'll be as creative as possible. It just feels like it hasn't been the most rhythmic. The DJ Moore mention is probably a good one. I mean, the Vikings secondary, specifically the corners, have not had a ton of success tackling out on the edge. And he's a guy, if you get the ball to him in space, you know, it's difficult to tackle. Same with Luther Burden. So, yeah, that, you know, it's going to be interesting. To flip over to the defense, like, looking at the numbers of this defense it's kind of silly. They lead the NFL in turnovers with 20, which is where the Vikings were last year at this point in the season. They're giving up 1 million explosive pass plays. They haven't been exceptional. It doesn't look like stopping the run. Like, what do you make of what this defense has been and is going up against this Vikings offense that has hurt many eyes who are watching and ears probably who are listening?
Yeah, I mean, they're like the prototypical opportunistic defense. And like you mentioned some of those rankings, I just want to pull up a couple of them. Like 30th in yards allowed per play, 29th in yards allowed per carry, 31st in yards allowed per pass. But they're number 1 in interception rate, number 6 on third down, number 12 in the red zone. So, like, and those are, like, that's where you make your money. I'm glad you plugged my story about the third down defense there that I put out this week with our colleague Ted Wynn. And he broke down the tape because it's a really fascinating thing. Like, Dennis Allen does like a lot of, you know, actually some of it reminds me of some of the old stuff that like Zimmer used to do, you know, where you got the 2 linebackers mugging on the A gap.
The A gap, that's a classic.
Love that. And then you know, are they going to rush 6? Are they going to rush 3? Is there a defensive end dropping in coverage? Like, you know, Flores does some similar stuff too, where like the idea is the quarterback just has no idea where it's coming from. And like I first kind of observed that watching week 1. And when they get you like on 3rd and 8 plus, the Bears lead the league in opponent passer rating. Like the opposing quarterbacks have like a 39 passer rating on 3rd and 8 and more against the Bears. The problem is getting there. Like, I wrote this in my prediction is that watching Mason, Jordan Mason,
That's his name.
the young fellow's name, watching him run in the fourth quarter in week 1, that was my first like, oh, this defense might be a problem. And like I could see Kevin O'Connell kind of creating a game plan that helps his quarterback, focuses on running the football, and gets them out of these 3rd and longs. Because if it's 3rd and 7, I think that's where J.J. McCarthy is really going to struggle, just because Dennis Allen's done a really good job against all quarterbacks this year with that. So, yeah, it's a weird defense. They're without their best cover guy in Jalen Johnson. They're without their best nickel in Kyler Gordon, although C.J. Gardner-Johnson's been kind of a fun little revelation since joining the team 2 weeks ago. They've been out without T.J. Edwards, who's one of their better run defenders. They're without Dio Dangbo, their big money defensive end, for the rest of the season. They lost their number 3 defensive end, the rookie Shamar Turner, for the rest of the season. They've been out with number 4 Dominique Robinson. Like, they moved Chris Williams, who's like started out the season like their number 4 defensive tackle. Like, he was playing end last week. So they've been totally banged up, but they just find a way to get the job done when they need to. So it's a total, like, it's a defense that's playing with fire, but they've done enough in the critical moments to help them be 6-3. So like that's a massive matchup, because like JJ's gonna have time to throw. Like there's not a great pass rushing team when they rush 4. So if Kevin O'Connell's comfortable letting him having him let it rip on first down, when they're going to be more in their they're not going to be throwing out crazy wrinkles, like you trust Jefferson Addison to beat those corners. Like if JJ gets in a rhythm, like that's how I can see the Vikings kind of taking control of the game.
It's funny because there are a couple things you said that just, I know the people listening to this are just, you said, like, if Kevin O'Connell can craft a game plan where he's helping the quarterback running the football, people listening to this are screaming, please, like, can he at some point run the football? That has been a question and a conversation here locally. And then you said, if
can I ask a question?
Yeah. Ask away.
Can I have a question for you? Like, what's the Vikings record? 4-5?
That's the record.
Okay. It's so funny to me because I understand expectations are higher. I understand like how they're losing. I get it. Like, for some of the Bears teams I've covered, for them to be 4-5 through 9 games would be like a miracle. I'm talking about the teams with a rookie quarterback. So like, I see Minnesota.
Frankly, JJ didn't play for 5 games. Carson Wentz was the quarterback, and they've been in almost, most of these games. I mean, beyond the Thursday night game against the Chargers, I mean, all of these games have been pretty close. The Falcons in week 2 was a mess, but I mean, for the most part, there's a very obvious path where they would be 6-3.
I guess it's a tough comparison because obviously this Vikings team is built to win. There's a lot better players and stuff. Like, I mean, the worst case scenario is the 2024 Bears. They had a rookie quarterback, a lot of veterans, and they totally torpedoed their season after the Hail Mary. Now, that's obviously not happening in Minnesota, but it's just kind of funny to be like, man, they're 4-5. Like, that's not great, but like usually when I'm covering teams that are having fans be so angry, usually like they're 2-8.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's very apt of you to mention that. It's funny because I had a conversation with our colleague Jeff Zrubiak, who covers the Ravens, before the game on Sunday, and Jeff was like, yeah, people are negative here, but you'd wait to hear what the Ravens people are saying right now about this team. So oftentimes, maybe the summary, the theme is just these fan bases that you don't observe from close up are all beyond frustrated and mad. It's highly entertaining. But the funny thing you said was like, or Kevin O'Connell could lean into throwing the ball on first down, which I know people here are like, that is something that is very likely to happen. My thing is this. So I was going to bring up the third down story that you wrote, because what Dennis Allen is doing is essentially, it looks like a punt block before the snap, And you said it. You don't know who's coming and who's dropping. And I guess my question with this game is, what is preventing him from just letting it rip? Because like there have been times in the past with Brian Flores against young quarterbacks where he's just decided like, handle the pain, young fella. And that's been the approach that he's taken. It just part of me wonders, like, with the cornerback situation that Chicago has and the lack of pass rush and, like what would prevent them from throwing just the screwball and trying to affect the Vikings in that way?
It's a great point. And the best comparison, I guess, is when the Bears get a stop on first down, we do see some stuff on second down. It's like we saw, like you'll see safety blitzes on second down. I think Gardner Johnson, one of his sacks last week came on second down, blitzing from the nickel. So yeah, so I think that like we could see some more second down stuff because it's a young quarterback as opposed to waiting to third down. The problem is you have to stop the run game. Like you have to, if it's 2nd and 2, he's not going to do any of that. And like they did a pretty good job against the run early on last week against the Giants. So, but it's just not a group that they give up a lot of yards.
Yeah, from the Vikings standpoint, I mean, this does really feel like establish the run, be able to run the football, because you can, because it'll help everything else. The one aspect that is kind of throws an interesting layer is Justin Jefferson did not, it was an off game last Sunday against the Ravens. You got to I know, listening to him today, he's going to be very motivated, and I would imagine head coach Kevin O'Connell is going to be motivated to get him going. So balancing those two worlds has kind of been the story of the season, and how they do it on Sunday is going to be interesting. Did you make a prediction? You asked me for a prediction, so hopefully you made a prediction.
I did. I picked the Vikings, kind of because what I was talking about. I think there's a way to scheme up that offense to do enough to stay ahead of the sticks and keep the Bears out of the advantageous defensive opportunities. And if they're able to do that early, it keeps the Bears, putting Caleb Williams in shotgun a lot. You lose some of the play action stuff. We've seen some games where they've gone away from the run maybe a little too early. And like I could see, if the Vikings build a lead, does that happen? And yeah, so I just like here's the thing. The Bears have these 2 games. So they got, after Sunday, the next game they host Mike DeFabo's Pittsburgh Steelers. Shout out Mike DeFabo. And I just think the Bears, like in this path to prove they're real, like you need to split these 2. And so like with that in the back of my mind, like it's tough to win in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Maybe they lose that one, then beat Pittsburgh, and then they'll lose in Philly on Black Friday, and then see how December goes. So that's kind of the way I was like looking at it. But I will say this, and this could mean nothing. The fact that they haven't won in the division is clearly been like a talking point. Like you've heard a couple people reference it. So now that they're not motivated for every game, but I do think that there is like an understand, like they understand that they have to win these division games, and you can't start 0-3 in the division. It's not good. So I don't think they'll be lacking motivation or anything like that. Like they're going to become ready to go on Sunday. And certainly they've got a bad taste in their mouth. What happened in the fourth quarter in week 1? They totally blew that game. As Ben Johnson said, they're a different team, as are the Vikings. But yeah, I'm hoping, expecting to be close one. I've been to Minnesota for some just horrific Bears-Vikings games. I mean,
there was a Monday night game.
Even the one
last year or
that
something?
was one I mentioned. The score was 12-10. It was like a couple years ago, and it was Justin Fields' like first like legitimate game-winning play. And last year's game was Bears just got blitzed out of the building. I've been to a lot of season finales where it means nothing for the Bears. It's just the games haven't been very pretty there. So I'm just hoping for us we can get an exciting matchup.
Yeah, I'd pick the Bears, which is not going to curry favor with the listener viewing audience, but it was a Caleb Williams, just faith in that quarterback versus where the Vikings are right now. That was a selection. All right, before we hop off and I go check to see if Drake May's 20 for 20, can you tell the listeners where they can find your podcast, Breaking In?
Drake May is 19 for 23 for 205 right now.
Sure, naturally.
Yeah, good player. Thank you. I have a podcast called Breaking In with Kevin Fishbain. You can find it on all of your listening platforms, also on YouTube and Instagram. So check it out. Alec was my test podcast, so maybe one day he'll be he'll get a real episode. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I had Joe Buck on the week that the Bears Vikings last played. That was cool.
And who's your guest this week?
Who do you want to be on? This past week was Judy Batista, NFL Network, phenomenal writer, reporter. Next week, still we're working through who next week's going to be, but we've got some big-time NFL names still left on the docket as the season goes. Maybe get some college football. I actually have a soccer guest coming up in a couple weeks.
Okay. Mix that in. Who would be Brennan Quinn? He is a senior writer for us at The Athletic. That's why I want to get his perspective on the job that we do or want to do or try to do. So yeah, thank you.
I'm adding it to my list right now. But yeah, for those of you who are interested, it's I interview sports journalists about their origin story, and it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, check it out.
It's
rate,
fascinating.
like, subscribe, follow.
Right.
All those things.
They've already heard that in the intro of this. Thank you. Appreciate it, Kevin. I will see you at US Bank Stadium for the life changer.
Thanks, Alec.
That'll do it for episode 100 and 128. Episode 128 on the Alec Lewis Show. If you're new here watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart or wherever you get your podcast, you can rate and review. And all that stuff helps us out. Show's presented by First Resource Bank, which is a locally owned bank that is exceptional, unbelievable banking platform and run by really, really good people. And then sponsored by Unreal, the locally owned clothing brand that has limited edition NFL drafts. For more on this game, please go check out our loaded story at The Athletic previewing it with John Krasinski. My colleague who covers the Timberwolves day to day and does really everything because he's incredible. And with that, if you're going to the game Sunday, enjoy it. If you're watching, hope it's easy on the eyes. We will be back next week to cover it all with as much in-depth eval as we possibly can. But with that, that'll do it for episode 128. We will talk to you guys very, very soon.